It was a quiet night, like any other. Suddenly, an intruder came to the studio, a fan of the Vikmo show, who couldn't contain his thirst to watch the final episode. But against his wishes, he found himself trapped in the world he had always been obsessed with, surrounded by the characters he had always loved. However, the reality he encountered was not at all like he had imagined. The Vikmo show is my first original game, which has been in development for over a year. To clarify, Chapter 1 took about 6 months to complete, much of which was spent planning all 6 chapters of the game, including the characters, the overarching plot for each chapter, the ending, and the general message. After all this was done, it took 4 months to translate sketches into gameplay. Now you might be wondering, what about the other 6 months? Well, the Vikmo show went under what I call reimagining. It was much different from what it is right now. I might discuss this further, and even release the old version of the Vikmo show to the public once the main game becomes successful. In short, the old version was complete and only needed polishing, but I took a long 4-month break during which I learned new things in life, both good and bad. When I returned to the game, I thought, there is no way I'm releasing this. To say that the game was meaningless, with a confusing story, random gameplay with no basis, and annoying characters with no purpose would be an understatement. Therefore, I decided to flush it down the toilet and start from scratch. I chose a pixel art style for 2 reasons. My love for pixel art games like Undertale/Deltarune, and the amount of headaches I would have had if I were to make it a 3D game. There's just so much. Voice acting, realistic sound design, 3D models, 3D mechanics, 3D animations, and double the number of bugs. It was just too much for me, which is why I opted for the pixel art style and used the Game Maker Studio 2 engine. For level design, I decided to set the game in a closed space because it's easier to make a closed space area look good compared to an open one. This was a lesson I learned from the old version of the Vikmo show. Although 2 chapters of the game would break this rule, but that's a discussion for another time. In terms of gameplay, one strategy I adopted was to incorporate as much diversity in mechanics as possible. This was inspired by one of my childhood games, Crash Bandicoot to Insanity. Each segment introduces something new, exploring an open area, a linear platforming tutorial, a boss fight, a ball sequence, a chase. This keeps the game fresh and makes it difficult for the player to get bored. I've implemented this approach in the Vikmo show, and it will at least continue into Chapter 2, though I'm not sure about the later chapters. Regarding graphics, every single sprite you see in this game is drawn by me. They were so fun to create, especially the character sprites. I don't plan to hire anyone to make the art for me, as I am already satisfied with my work. As for coding, I've faced many challenges, especially with the cake puzzles, where sometimes the structure itself doesn't work as intended. Occasionally, puzzles could be solved much easier than intended, but all these issues were fixed in the end. The story is what I'm most proud of. If you play the game, you'll notice that I've tried to avoid as many mascot horror cliches as possible. I believe that this game's story is unique compared to others in its genre, and if the game becomes successful, you'll understand what I mean with the next chapters. I also aim to make Chapter 1 as substantial as reasonably possible, to stand out from games like Puppy Playtime, Ben D, and Bon Bon. Since their first chapters can be completed in about 15 minutes, I'm really proud of how Chapter 1 turned out. Now that we reached the end of this devlog, I want to tell you something before we go. Please listen. Making these videos is not easy, and developing the Vikmo show is very, very time consuming, especially that I'm a university student. Therefore, I need a lot of your love and support to continue with it. You can support me on Patreon, and by subscribing, in the future, you'll be able to see the progress of my videos. And hopefully, if it reaches a certain threshold, I'll also post news about the Vikmo show's development. Consider donating if you believe in me and my content, both on YouTube and the Vikmo show. and see you next time.